Hey, did you get a chance to go to the APTA Transform Conference in Boston this year? I was there and had a great interview with our guest today, Laurence Broseta. She is the Keolis Group International CEO. She happened to be in Boston. She gave an address that morning, spoke to the whole audience of thousands of people there. And Brad Thomas, a friend of mine who is CEO of Keolis North America, I was scheduled to interview him for this podcast. And he said, Paul, I'll do one better. My boss is in town. Why don't you interview her? She's amazing. And you know what? She is. She's had great experience across multiple of the world's largest public transportation companies. And she brings to us today a perspective that we don't often get, this international perspective, a European perspective on contracting and public transportation, what they bring to the table for transit agencies there in Europe and across the world, and here in North America. I love their visualization rooms that Keolis has. You'll find out all about that on this interview. APTA this year was an amazing conference, like it always is, with 3,000 registrants, lots of learning and lots of connecting that takes place. And we're happy to bring you this podcast, which was recorded live in Keolis' offices there in downtown Boston. Enjoy this interview with Laurence Broseta, Keolis International CEO. So Laurence, great to meet you. You're the CEO, Laurence Broseta of Keolis International. And we're meeting in your headquarters here in Boston during the American Public Transportation Association's Transform Conference. Great to meet you. We had a little conversation last night. So thanks for letting us chat with you for a few minutes today.
Yes, nice to meet you as well. I'm happy to have this interview.
Yeah, I kind of lost my voice last night at all the parties and the receptions, but we'll do our best to get through this.
I did my best not to lose it because I had to talk 2 minutes this morning, so I saved my voice for the conference.
That's right. You were the keynote this morning, one of the keynotes. Yeah, that's great. Actually,
I introduced a panel about mega projects. That's very interesting, and as Keolis, we are part of a few mega projects around the world. In particular, we mentioned this morning in the panel the Île-de-France Mobility Grand Paris Express project, which is a loop of automated metro around Paris.
Okay.
And it's still under construction, but Keolis will be the operator of the new lines.
Ah, very good.
And the Grand Paris Express was part of the panel invitees.
Well, tell us some about your company, Keolis, and your place in the world. I mean, you're one of the largest operators of public transportation around the world.
Yes, absolutely. We are amongst the largest. We, as Keolis, we operate in 13 countries. Our main country is France, because historically we came from France, but we operate in 12 others. Our second big country or platform, let's say, is North America with US and Canada.
Okay.
The third one is Australia. And we also operate in Middle East, Asia, and Africa.
Oh, very good. And so you're CEO of the International, right?
Yes, exactly. I don't look after the France business. I have colleagues doing that.
Sure.
My part of the world is the rest of the world.
The rest of the world. Yeah, I understand. It's great. So how did France become like the center of all these big companies? Because it's you, Transdev, and RATP Dev. And by the way, you've worked for them. Let's talk about that later. But how is that? I mean, you guys have dominate now the world market.
Yes, that's amazing. 3 of the main largest operators are from France. You mentioned them. I believe there are reasons for that because of the maturity of the transportation sector in France for operation. The public transport authority in France have long gone to private operation, not in every city, but maybe more than half of the cities.
Okay.
And they have a model of subcontracting the operation to private operators, which is very interesting and a bit different from what you find in other countries, because they subcontract the whole transport operation, not only metro on one side, bus on another side. Right. They subcontract the whole network for a city, and that includes marketing, for example. We are in charge of growing the ridership, so doing whatever is needed with passengers to make them come to our network. So based on this, we the French operators have built a strong expertise that we use elsewhere in the world.
Yeah.
So I believe it's one of the reasons why we are so strong. Although the model is usually different in other countries, with subcontracting of specific operations, separate.
Is it common in your operations in France for you all, since you're responsible for marketing, are you keeping the fare box? Is that the fare revenues, or do you give that to the agency? How does that work over there?
Yeah, there are different models, and I know you told me you visited the Dijon network, which is a great example of integrated network, because in Dijon, Keolis operates the buses, the tram, the parking, the bikes.
Oh, wow.
So it includes also first mile, last mile, and slow mobility, we can say. And usually we are in charge of increasing ridership and collecting the revenue. The revenue goes to the PTA, but depending of the contract, we have certain incentives on the growth of a ridership. It's not that we keep the revenue, the revenues are back to the PTA and they pay for our services, but we manage to grow year by year the ridership, and we are incentivized on that.
That's wonderful, yeah. When we talked last night at your reception, I mentioned, I just want to mention it because I have such respect for him, that your predecessor, Bernard, was a great man, and he's the one that invited me to come over there. That's how I got to visit there. And you've got big shoes, and I understand you're filling them very well, as we say here in the U.S. So.
I am proud to be in Bernard Tabarly's shoes. He was very well recognized in the industry, and he did great in Keolis' team.
Yeah.
Very much appreciated by our employees and partners.
Justin Thompson, the Chief of Staff here in the U.S., just walked us around the building, and he took me to the room where you call it a visualization room. Tell us about that. I love that concept, what you all do.
Yeah, visualization rooms are very important because it's a place where we have on the walls all the main KPIs of our operation. Usually you have a section for operation, what were the on-time performance results for the last days, the last week, the last month, what are the targets where we are, and you have a section for the rolling stock or buses, and how do they perform, what is our mean time between failure, or all the main KPIs, and the financial KPIs as well, the ridership. And when you enter the room, you can enter with the management team and have your management meetings there and look at the KPI and discuss the results and the targets and action plan. But you can do that also with any type of employee. People from the maintenance, the workshops, they can come here and also share where we are, both in their area for maintenance, but also have an understanding of what else is happening in the company. So it's a very powerful tool to share with all our employees, management level and all employees, the situation of the company, the target. And when we have the whole team understanding well the targets and what are the goals we want to achieve, we get also better engagement and accountability for all the teams. And these tools are part of a bigger framework of Keolis program. We have Keolis ways of doing things, and that's the value we add to our public transport authorities when we take over a contract. We came with our programs. So, for example, this visualization room, it's part of the program we call KEO and KIM. KEO is the Keolis way of doing operation, and KIM is the Keolis way of doing maintenance. And it includes best practice that we have learned in all our network, and that we transfer to a specific operation. And it includes standard operating procedures and how to engage staff with visualization room, and best processes and best practices for operation on one side and maintenance on the other side. So the idea is to, for our partners, to get the best value of working with a global, international partner who gather best practice and implement them in their local operations.
You know, those type of things in an organization, to me, make all the difference. The focus on the numbers, the focus on individual accountability. Justin was telling me again, I've heard this before, that you bring everybody in and it's a stand-up 1 hour meeting.
Yeah.
You stand up, right? Walk me through how that would work. That's very interesting. And they point to numbers and like everybody has to kind of talk about it?
Yeah.
Is that what happens?
It happens. So depending of the type of meeting, it can be 1 hour if it's a management meeting, but it can also be a 5 minutes meeting. Typically in the KIM program, the Keolis way of doing maintenance, the best practice is 5 minutes every morning with the workers in the depot. So you have the visualization in the depot, and everybody look at the panel, what happened the last day, who is working today, what is the task of everybody, what are the main action of the day, and it's only 5 minutes standing in front of the panel, and the staff can ask questions, come with initiative and ideas also. It's things we can have on the panel, and we note the initiative, and we see how we can progress with them. So
let's talk about what you're doing here in America, because you do bring those international kind of procedures that you use all over the world to American contracts. But here in Boston, you all operate the largest, I think, privately operated commuter rail service in the country for the MBTA, for the T.
Yeah.
Ryan Colahan, the Chief Operating Officer, is a good friend of mine, has been on the podcast, and he's told me before how you all were great partners, getting out of the snowstorm, that happened a couple years ago and all like that. And so talk to me about this operation here, the MBTA, and the role it plays at Keolis.
Yeah, it's a very important contract for Keolis. We are operating for a decade now. It was quite difficult at the start when we started the operations here. We had to make a lot of efforts to improve the operational performance. The KPIs that you were just mentioning initially were not so good, so it took a few years, honestly, to make it better and to have now one of the best operating performance of the commuter rail. And you can see that in the ridership, because you know that after COVID, most of the commuter networks, and it's true as well for bus operation, had difficulty to go back to ridership prior to COVID. And with the commuter rail here in Boston, we are back to pre-COVID ridership, and it's the best recovery of all the commuter rail. It's amazing. And actually, it's thanks to the quality of the partnership we have with MBTA, because it's not only by putting the service back to what they were that it was achieved, but it was looking at the new trend of passenger journey after COVID. We all know that not everybody has come back full-time to their offices. People are doing home working now, at least partially. And so there are less commuter journeys, but there are more leisure journey, or journey at any time during the day, or weekend journeys. We have seen this trend not only here in Boston and North America, but everywhere in the world. So very quickly, Keolis came with proposal to our public transport authorities everywhere in the world to adapt the timetables to the new trend. And MBTA took it very quickly. We shared our best practice around the world, but they were also at the initiative and pushing for it. So we could implement new timetables with these off-peak journeys and weekend journeys, and it worked very well. So that's how we recovered less commuter journeys, more leisure journeys.
Yeah, and you're right. That's what's happening around the world. Call back to a great leader you had here recently, David Scory, who was a good friend of mine and recently retired. Did a great job. What you had here, and now you brought in a wonderful guy, Brad, who is a good friend of mine. Was at First Transit and had a long history here in the U.S. Good hire, by the way. Smart having Brad Thompson here. Yeah. So talk to me about the process you all go through in selecting your top leaders around the world. What are you looking for?
Yes, that's a great question, because obviously we are a people business, and it's only managing people, drivers, passenger attendants, etc. So we work with our staff, and we need to have great leaders to engage our employees and deliver the results. So about the selection process, so you mentioned Brad Thomas, who is now in charge of all our North America operation. So not only in the US, but also in Canada. And we have grown significantly in the US and Canada in the last years. So I will come back to that. So Canada, so Brad is overseeing this whole operation. And in Boston for the commuter rail, we now have John Killin managing the Boston commuter rail. He was part of the team in the last years. Yeah. That's how David Scorey started also in North America. He started by being the head of the commuter rail, and then he was a chief executive officer for the whole US. So we have both Brad for US and John Killin for the commuter rail. And to come back to the leaders, so there is a recruitment. So we have taken people who have a great reputation on the market, like Brad, and he had a long experience in other companies and delivered a lot. So it was definitely a great recruitment. And then I want to mention another of the Keolis program, because it's about having the right people and making them work well together and work the Keolis way. So we also have a Keolis way of leadership, let's say. So we have a leadership management program that we have deployed in all our countries. It was partly born in Australia and here in North America, who first piloted here, and now it's in all our operation. So we work with our leaders, so first the executive team, on what are the good practice in leadership that Keolis want to implement, to make sure we work collaboratively and we engage our staff.
Have your own kind of academy to grow. Yeah, that's wonderful.
Thanks for listening to the Transit Unplugged podcast. We are so glad you're here. If you're enjoying this show, we know you'll love our other transit industry programs. On Transit Unplugged TV, Paul Comfort explores the food, culture, and transit systems around the globe. You get to see everything. You'll love this show. And every week, we also offer up the Transit Unplugged News Minute, where you can get the latest industry headlines in less than 60 seconds. You can find out more at transitunplugged.com. Now back to Paul Comfort for this edition of the award-winning Transit Unplugged podcast.
You mentioned that Brad oversees operations in the U.S. and Canada. I wanted to ask you about the high-speed rail ALTO you've got going in Canada. Can you tell me something about that?
Yeah. So ALTO was announced by the Canadian Prime Minister just at the beginning of this year, and he launched the project. We went through a competition where many companies were involved to get this contract. So it's a very special scheme that we have not seen elsewhere since now, because it's a high-speed light project, but they have tendered out at the time where the design is not yet done, but we will partner with the government to prepare the design. So it starts with a co-development phase, where the contractor and the government will work hand in hand to develop the scheme, like the alignment, exact speed, a characteristic of the railway. So we start with a 4-year period of development with a
4-year plan.
4-year plan. So just recently, this week, the government announced that they want to speed up the process.
Speed up the high-speed rail.
Exactly. They had initially planned for 8 years of co-development plus design before start of construction, and now they said we'll start construction in 4 years' time.
So they cut it in half.
Yeah.
Where's it going to go from? What are the cities it's going to? Do you know?
So yes, it's Toronto to Quebec.
We haven't been able to figure out high-speed rail in America yet. It's pretty odd. It's everywhere else in the world, Asia, Europe. I mean, I just rode SNCF from Milan up to Turin. You guys have a good relationship with SNCF, right?
Yes, SNCF is our main shareholder. They are,
I didn't know that.
They are 70% shareholder for Keolis, and our other 30% is Caisse des Dépôts du Québec, CDPQ. CDPQ is Caisse des Dépôts du Québec, and we work together for this ALTO project, because it's not only the contract with the operator. We have the financing institution, which would be CDPQ, plus future operator, Keolis, and the design JV. So the contract has been awarded to this group consortium, including financing, future operation, and design. And it's very interesting to have the operator from the beginning, because we are here to make sure we think like a passenger from the beginning, and we think about the services at the same time that we design the network. So SNCF, yes, so they are our main shareholder. As you mentioned, they operate high speed all over Europe, not only in France. They are the historical rail operator in France, but now they have expanded their services all over Europe, thanks to the opening to private operation of all the rail network in Europe. So now they have high-speed rail in France, and Eurostar, as you know, is also owned partially by SNCF, Thalys to Belgium and Netherlands, high-speed to Italy and in Spain as well. And what is interesting is they have developed that in Europe, in open access. And now we are working together with our shareholder SNCF to address the international rail market, which is developing very fast. So ALTO is an example. In this ALTO contract, the operator will be Keolis plus SNCF. We have formed the JV.
So it's like design, build, operate?
Yeah. It will be design, build, operate, and funding. But SNCF and Keolis will be the operate and maintenance part of the contract. And with SNCF, we now look at the worldwide market, because as for Canada and ALTO, there are several other projects in the world. So a pity we don't yet have many opportunity for high speed in the North America and US, but it might come. It might come.
Bring it here for us. Help us out.
So we'll come with a good example of what we do as well. So there is ALTO, and there are other high speed projects. For example, Australia is working on developing a high speed railway between Melbourne and Sydney. So it's still in the development phase, not yet fully funded, but good work is done on that. And that's for very high speed. But for high speed or normal speed, let's say, there are lots of other projects around the world that we are working on, and we will address with our shareholder, SNCF.
Yeah. The train we were on, I think, was going 300 kilometers per hour. Very smooth. We met with the lady who's the president of their operations in Italy. So she showed us everything for an upcoming episode we got. Very impressed. We rode a couple other operators too. I rode 3 in total. And, here in America, we've got Brightline Trains, which is a private operator. And they're building something between Las Vegas and Los Angeles, basically. That would be the first, I think, happening. But,
First steps.
Yeah, that's right. Well, kind of first steps. I mean, when I was CEO of the MTA in Baltimore, when I got there, 10 years ago, we were studying high-speed rail between Washington and Baltimore. We had a $20-some million federal grant. Now it's 10 years later. Guess what they're still doing? Studying. So I like the fact that the Canadian government said, let's get this done
and quicker.
Come on, man. What the heck?
No, and in France, when I was a kid, I was living in Marseille, and to go from Marseille to Paris, I did it a few times. It was a 7-hour train. So it was feasible by train, but all day. And now it's 3 hours and 30 minutes, which is very quick. So I can go for the weekend. I leave on Friday evening, and I arrive Friday evening. And I come back for the weekend.
2 hours ahead of time to the airport, like you do everywhere else.
And this line was the first one, Paris to Lyon and then to Marseille. And in my first years of career, I also worked for a high-speed one in Great Britain, which was a high speed between London and the Channel Tunnel, and then to Paris. So in UK as well, now you have this high speed with Eurostar. You go very fast from Paris to London.
I've done that. That's great.
And these were the first lines, but now it's all over Europe, and change the European way of life, because now you go to any city very quickly with trains and high-speed trains. So short flight is no longer necessary. You use massively trains in Europe.
And they're cleaner for the environment.
Yeah. In particular, because in France we have clean energy. We use nuclear power plants for our energy, so it's carbon zero electricity.
So let's switch back here to North America, where we're at today in Boston. What do you all do here in North America? We've talked about the commuter rail, but what else are you doing?
So yes, in North America we are in rail and we are in bus transit as well, and we have enjoyed a nice growth in the recent years in North America. We beginning of January 2024. So last year we started 2 new big contracts in Phoenix and Austin. So we doubled the size of our transit activity in America at this stage. And
those are 2 great operations too, led by 2 great women.
Absolutely,
right? Jessica
absolutely.
Mefford-Miller in Phoenix, right, and Dottie in Kent Metro.
Yeah, we have good clients and partners in these 2 cities. So we are working on improving performance of operation as well in these cities. It's going on well. And so that was the beginning of 24. And this year we also won a nice contract close to here, Metro West transit operation. So it's close to our commuter rail operation. So we started this year. So another nice contract. So good growth in transit in the US. And in Canada, we used to be present mostly in the east part of the country, around Montreal and Quebec. Okay. And we did an acquisition last year of a company operating in the other part, in the west part. So we also doubled our size in Canada thanks to acquisition, to grow in the part of the country we were not present. So now we are working on the integration of these 2 entities, and we have a great leader there, Greg Nichols, who has joined Keolis with this acquisition and now manage all Canada. So we are targeting also good growth in Canada, in addition to the ALTO project, which will take some time to be built.
There you go. All right, so last question is, let's talk about the future.
Yeah.
So public transportation had a real inflection point, right, during the pandemic. It really hurt us everywhere, ridership, et cetera. I think we're back. We're back pretty strong. I think we've got a lot of new lessons we learned. Things are a lot cleaner now than they used to be. I remember back in the day, the buses were lucky to get a deep clean once a week. Now it's happening every night. So what do you see for the future from your perspective, leading one of the biggest companies in the world?
Yeah, I agree with what you say. We are now post-COVID and the ridership is more or less back, depending on where, but it's back. And the demand is there from our passengers, but also from the community, because we have to go to cleaner transportation, cleaner way of life, and decarbonization. So public transport is getting ready for that with more and more clean vehicles, for example. So we have many PTAs here in North America who are going to new energies, so electrical vehicle or hydrogen vehicles. As a group, we already operate 1,500 electrical vehicles around the world. So we have experience of all type of bus manufacturer, and we have gone through the launch and pilot everywhere, so we know the best practice to operate them, and we can share that with the PTA who want to launch their green energy. So electric is one way. Hydrogen is also
I love hydrogen.
Developing well here. We operate a hydrogen vehicle in Foothill, for example. And we know
for Doran Barnes.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we have a great operation of hydrogen vehicles there. So I think that's part of the future. So to keep developing our bus transit operation and having it greener and greener, and keep developing rail as well. I told you around the world there are lots of projects or mega projects of new metro lines and train lines. And I wish we will have some also here in North America.
Please, I beg you, bring us high-speed rail. That's great. Well, Laurence Broseta, Keolis International CEO, it's been a joy to meet you and to hear your perspective on what's happening around the world and how you're bringing some of those best practices right here to North America. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Transit Unplugged, the world's #1 transit executive podcast. I'm Julie Gates, executive producer of the podcast. Many thanks to the team that makes this show happen. Host and producer Paul Comfort. Producer Chris O'Keefe. Editor Patrick Emile. Associate producer Cindy Raskin. And consultants Dan Meisner and Jonas Woost at Bumper. Transit Unplugged is being brought to you by Modaxo, passionate about moving the world's people. If you would enjoy behind-the-scenes insights and updates from the show, sign up for our weekly newsletter, which has links to can't-miss conversations with the biggest names in mobility. Head to transitunplugged.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Transit Unplugged.